In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can embed an AI assistant into our coding environment. In this case, we're using a Python Google Colab notebook. What we would like to do is create a data assistant and use it to analyze data. The reason for doing this is that we can put it into a programming environment where the analyst and the chatbot are working together to analyze the data in a somewhat of a hybrid model. Before we go into the construction of the data assistant here, the AI data assistant, I'd like to show you how it can be used. It's quite powerful because the way this has been coded up here, and I'm skipping down to the step where we're actually running it, with these 4 lines of code, of which 2 are just string assignments, the location of the data here and the message or prompt that we're going to feed in, we can have the model output quite a bit of data. So you can see this cell here, it retrieved an AI assistant, it created a thread, it ran on that thread and output all of this content here into my Python notebook, including the graphs that are down here. Once that was done, I was able to send in another prompt. This data assistant kept track of the thread and responded to that plot. Funny as it may be, it didn't like this particular request because it said it had already done so. It appears there's been some confusion. I've already generated and plotted the linear regression line. I have to be prepared for chatbots that talk back, don't always take orders. In any case, we were able to then add a third prompt to that same message thread, and that produced the box plots that we generated in the handcrafted approach. So this is a very powerful tool that, with a few lines of code, produces and generates a lot of content within the analytical environment that can be used by the analyst as a guide to how to analyze some data, and maybe as a validation of their a different approach that they have taken. So let's go back and talk about how this is created. The first thing I want to say is that in order to create this, the data set that I fed in here has already been cleaned. So it's the same data that we saw here for Oxford, the Oxford weather station data, but I have cleaned it to remove these macro descriptive column rows at the top and to clean up the data set to remove non-numeric characters and that type of thing. So what we're now feeding in, you can find it in the notebook, is this clean CSV file. The reason for doing so is it makes the AI assistant much more efficient. And since we're already in a programming environment, it seems reasonable to think that the user in this case would have the experience with the data and the ability to clean it, and cleaning it makes the assistant much more efficient. I'll scroll down and we can now take a look at the data file that we fed in. So you can see that it's the same data as you saw on the website, but we've now cleaned it up so it's ready for analysis. In terms of the programming approach, what I've done here is create a class which is essentially a wrapper around the OpenAI APIs for creating and using an assistant. The reason I did this is to make it easy for the user to invoke the assistant. As you saw, with literally 4 lines of code, 2 of which again are string assignments, I can get back as a user responses to my prompt. In order to do that, some stuff has to happen in the background, and that's what this class does. To just walk through it a little bit, during the initialization process, we of course get our API keys. We then create an OpenAI object, which we assign to the client. We then have a method here to either create or retrieve the assistant, depending on what it's been instructed to do, and to create a thread. Then, once we have that, when a user inputs a message, this method here is invoked, add user message. What it does is it creates a message. If there's a file to be loaded, it loads that file, which you see here. It then runs the assistant and then allows us to view the responses. The next time we run it, this object will maintain the thread. And so the second question that I ask will be added to the response history. And then the assistant's messages in response to my user request will also be added there, and the full history will be available. So this particular wrapper, the way it's designed, it is designed to really hold one thread of a data analyst chatbot helping an analyst analyze a particular data set. That being said, you can load multiple files into it. As you can see, this can be a very powerful tool, allowing both the knowledge retrieval and the computational ability of a chatbot to be embedded into a code environment, allowing both the analyst and the chatbot to work in complementary ways to analyze data. Should make the analyst much more efficient and effective, and provide a way to validate some of the results.